Deftones' last album, Gore, never really quite clicked with me. It was that bit too dreamy, that bit too airy, and the guitars always felt like they were subservient to the synths and the atmospheric ambience. Whenever I'd listened to it, with a few exceptions like prayers triangles and heart/wires, it would just blend into one, each song barely distinguishable from the last. It just never quite itched the spot and didn't give me what I was really looking for in a Deftones album. White Pony was my first introduction to the band, as I'm sure it was for many people. Its blend of heavy alternative metal riffing with a new metal attitude and experimental Tool-esque tendencies with Chino's gorgeous voice just instantly captivated me. But then I would say it was Diamond Eyes which really cemented me as a fan of the band. Melodic and gorgeous, their heavy riffs cascaded down like a waterfall upon you, submerging them in that metal goodness. And that's what I love from Deftones, at least. So when I first started to listen to their new record, Ohms, I began wary. The opening track, Gensis, opens with a 50-second long synth line with Floydian guitars drenched in delay over the top. And I was thinking, was this just gonna be another kinda atmospheric odyssey to nowhere like a Gore? But then you hear the drummer counting the band by tapping the sticks, and then the song takes off into the stratosphere. Chino leads the charge, screaming, "I reject both sides of what I'm being told," which later gives way to more melodic singing and the occasional interjection of balance, screamed in a way I'm not sure I've heard since Shove It. The song instantly feels like a new genesis for the band. No, it's not a radical reinvention or not necessarily a major rebirth, but it demonstrates a clear refinement of the sound they've been curating post-White Pony. They've always been dancing around that White Pony sound ever since. Every album has seemed like it comes from White Pony as the seed of their sound. But here it seems like they're starting to branch out a little bit. They're going back to their older sound, giving it a fresh lick of paint, and really incorporating the maturity that they've learned over all of these years. A core reason for this, I believe, is that Deftones are going back to their roots, not just musically, but also by recruiting the producer Terry Date, who they'd last worked with on the unreleased record Eros. But after bassist Cheng was involved in an accident that would unfortunately ultimately claim his life, that album was shelved, meaning the last album that Deftones and Terry Date worked together on was their self-titled release in 2003. And the production here on Ohms is just great across the board. There's heavy moments which felt lost a bit in the last couple of records, here really stand out and pop, and it makes the album absolutely slap when it needs to. Though there's also space given for the quieter moments to breathe, and most importantly of all, there's just this pervading atmosphere to most of the songs, which instantly immerses you within the world they've created inside of the band's psyche. You see, the key thing about this album is that it's every element that's made up the Deftones sound and made them such a compelling band squared. Radiant City has this old school late 90s Chino vocal performance with a heavy, descending, almost dystopian riff based around this dirty bass line, and it sees Stephen Carpenter really make the most of that 9-string behemoth of a guitar monstrosity that he started playing. It gives the impression of everything falling apart, a city in decay, before being perfectly combined with this gorgeous, uplifting, synth-baked chorus that's more reminiscent of Diamond Eyes. There's a sweet relief provided in the midst of this desolate and barren wasteland. It really gives the listener hope in an otherwise claustrophobic and dark song. Or we could talk about Pompeji, which channels Koino Yokan and Gore with its soundscape soundscape surrounding Chino's voice before biblical imagery kicks in and the crushing riffs start to drive the song. But it's not long after that that the soundscape returns. You hear seagulls cry out, and it's just blended together so expertly, and then an unexpectedly long synthy outro cements the vibe of the minimalist soundscapes on display, accentuating Carpenter's guitars and combining with Chino's voice. And Stephen Carpenter's contributions can certainly be felt at the forefront of this album. It's been said that he wasn't really involved in that much of the creative process during the Gore sessions, but here you can tell he was an integral part of the songwriting. Urantia is a great example. It's one of the best songs on the album, and it balances heavy, Meshuggah-light riffage with Chino's delicate emotional vocals. It's got these ambiguous lyrics giving rise to vivid images and soul-searching and yearning themes, and the music behind it just so perfectly complements each musical and each emotional beat. But then similarly, that brings me on to my favourite song on the album, the lead single, Ohms, and god damn do I just love this song. Damn heavy riffs and breathless words coupled with catchy melodies. The song is just everything I could want in a Deftones song, just distilled, the very essence of the band, and it's just got this inexplicable quality about it which makes it so addictive. I just can't get enough, especially if that riff towards the end, like damn, just makes me want to go and pick up my guitar and start learning. It gets the heart pumping, but also hits you in the feels. But then I guess that's what Deftones do best anyhow, and that's what they've really achieved on Ohms. They're able to pump up your adrenaline and get you to want to start moshing, but then they can also knock it down with emotional delicacy and hit you hard. Ohms for me is certainly a roaring success. It's up there with the best albums in the Deftones discography. Personally, I think at this point I'd maybe put it just behind White Pony and Diamond Eyes. There's literally only one song that doesn't quite jive with me as well, and that's Headless. There's just nothing that really stands out to me about that one. But this album, I don't think it's going to win any new fans, because as I've stated, this is Deftones squared. But if you've even had a passing interest in the band, I think this is one you've got to check out.